welcome to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are archived. You can find them at ArtistFirst.com. Send us your questions and comments to DJ@ArtistFirst.com. Now here they are, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
And here we are. Thank you very much, Z-Man. And here we are.
Ta-da!
Why can't everything just stay the same?
Yes.
You know, right now is perfect.
Oh.
We just have to stop right here.
Frozen in time.
And tomorrow can't be any better than today. And everything leading up to this point, total crap. Oh, by the way, welcome to the Soul of the Everyman show. And I'm Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret.
And that moment we just had a moment ago, that was the best moment ever. We're going back to that one.
We're frozen in time. We don't have tomorrow.
There's no tomorrow. Like, live like it's 1999 or something like that. Remember that movie Groundhog Day?
Yes.
You do the day over and over and over again. But I think, well, tonight's show, since we're jumping into the middle, tonight's show is about time, but really the theme, if you will, that we kind of came up with was, you know, that old saying, that old kind of feeling that we all get once in a while is, why can't everything just stay the same? Why do things have to change? And I think, you know, all of us can identify with that. At some point, we've all said it. You say, well, you know, change is bad.
Oh, back to that, are we?
Change is bad. And actually, change, at least from the point of view of most people, what change really is the unknown.
Right.
And the unknown is by definition bad. And the problem with this place that we all live in is that it seems time, regardless of what we feel, just continually is pushing us around and making us change. You know, and we would love for things. We think we would love for things to just remain the same. But you see, that was change there. That was
a change. Yeah.
That was a change.
Sorry about that.
That was a change. We would like things to remain the same. And I think that the thing we really would like is that somehow where we are, wherever we are in our lives, we just don't want to progress or risk that something bad is going to happen, or that something is going to change that we weren't prepared for, we didn't expect, we didn't want, you know?
Right. You just want to be able to say, I like this moment right now, but why can't it last?
It's almost, Margaret, it's almost like it's better the devil you know. You know, it's like, I know, let's just postulate. I know what's going on now. We all know that's not true, right? Nobody really knows what's going on. but just for the sake of argument, you're like,
I tell myself
I know what's going on right now. I've got it all under control. You know, the car is running right, and the house isn't falling down, and the kids aren't fighting, and whatever. So, you know, pick your whole situation, whatever the situation is. Like, this is good right now, you know. And if we just could freeze it, you do a Groundhog Day on today. And every morning we wake up and it would be 67 degrees, and it would be spring, and it would be, you know, it was going to have a little sun, a little clouds, a little rain, and it's like the perfect day. And like, why can't we just do that over and over and over again? And I can remain 47 for the rest of my life? Or something. Or at least, you know, remain where I am, which might not be 47 for the rest of my life.
Well, I mean, if you're going to choose that, would you choose a day out of your past?
Well, I think that's another question. You know, let's say, and that's a great question, actually. So you could say to somebody, well, here's your choices. You can take the moment you're in right now and stay that way, never change. you could live the way you live right now, which is you never know what's coming, but could be good, could be great. Tomorrow you could win the lottery. You never know. It's kind of like a box of chocolates or something. Or pick any point in your past and live there forever. And I think 99 out of 100 people would say they'd pick a day out of their past and they'd go there and say, that's the one I want. I want to live that day out of my past. Because it's got all the appeal of knowing exactly what happened and how it all turned out. And it's got the added benefit of you forgot how good or bad it was. You're imagining how good it was.
Yeah. No, it's usually there's so much that you've forgotten in the past.
There's nothing like memory to tell you how good them old good old days back in the days when we didn't have nothing like memory to fall back on and half remembered. The further away you get from any point in your life, the more wonderful it looks. You don't recall that when you were 14 you had pimples and you didn't, you were insecure and you couldn't drive, and you think, oh, those days when I was 14 and everything was wonderful and every day was summer and everything I did was puppies and kittens and cookies and lollipops, and you have this glamourie
True.
that you kind of cast over your past, and you forget all. I think this is true of all of us. We tend to remember the things we want to remember, the good things. We also remember what we think we should have said in that moment, and think, well, and then we just make it what we did say in that moment. Just
redo.
Let's paint that over heavily, and then draw our own new past, our own new past on it. So I think that if you go up in the dusty old attic, you pry open the door, it creaks open, there's this little box, you open it up and it says, pick any day out of your past, or any day that you've lived up to this point, and you can live it forever. And I think that magic pill, whatever you might want to call it, would be an incredible temptation to folks.
It would indeed, actually. Yeah, that would be an interesting question to put out there and have people write in. What would you choose?
What would you choose? And I think they would always would choose something like, that would be sort of their, let's say they would say it's a happy, wonderful time in their life, but then you would let's say that then you would actually be put back there, and the actual unfortunate reality would occur in that, this wonderful, perfect day out of your life was just like every other day.
Right.
In your life. It had good things.
Right.
Bad things. And advantages and disadvantages. And the realization that there is no, I think if you did that enough times, you would come to the realization that there really is no perfect day. True. And then if you were really, really wise, you could turn it around and do like kind of a jujitsu thing on it, and turn it around and say, maybe every day is perfect. And you go like, yeah, that's all Zen and everything. That's kind of cool.
Oh, that's funny.
So this question of time, of why can't everything just stay the same, has a certain sort of wistful attraction. It's like one of these, oh, if I were only a billionaire and everything would be perfect. Well, oh, if I could just stop time, and everything would always remain exactly the same. And you brought up, you had a great point, which was, if you want to elucidate, well, that would you stop everyone else's time at this, would everyone else not?
Well, yeah, if you're choosing a point, that means that the whole rest of the world's got to be there too.
Right.
So that's a tremendous responsibility falling onto you.
Well, and in fact, your best day could be someone else's
awful
worst day. So you're saying, well, I'm picking today. Today, everything was perfect. My underwear fit right, and my makeup was good, and my hair wasn't falling out, and my teeth stayed in, and all these great things happened to you. But meanwhile, in somewhere else, not in your little happy, puppy planet, someone's having a horrible day, and they would never want. So what we're really saying is that we all get to pick our own favorite best days.
Yeah, in other words, you can exclude people.
What's the consequence of that is that we, in essence, doing this, we all live in our own private universe.
It's true.
Where our best day doesn't affect anybody else's day.
One point I want to bring up is that concept of, you think you're going to pick a good day to live in. But I believe Thornton Wilder was the writer for a play called Our Town. Do you remember that?
Yes. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Our Town was a wonderful illustration of things aren't happening the way you think they are, the way they're being perceived.
Yes. And
they picked a very innocuous point because the person was warned that when you see this, the immensity, the wholeness of the experience is going to hit you, and it's not just from your perspective, but from a much broader. So they recommended picking a happy sort of innocuous moment, and it was, I believe, her birthday or something that they were looking at, and when she walked into it, all those feelings of the reality of being in the birthday struck her, as well as things that were happening that she didn't notice back then.
Right.
And that kind of awareness is the awareness of a mature, broader, objective eye. Thornton Wilder was excellent in being able to do that. And if I remember correctly, the play itself, they used very little by way of props. You were carried along because the story was so, you can identify with it easily.
Right.
You could be right there. And that, I thought, was an amazing reality. I mean, I think we were in high school when we were exposed to that.
Yeah. But that's a wonderful way of illustrating the difference between, the experience of the moment versus the observation of the moment. When you experience that moment, you experience it in a very time-limited and personal limited way. You're carrying along the you that was you then. You're less mature. Your motivations are different. Your ability to make, to connect the dots. Let's say you take a moment like in our town, we're going back to an earlier time when you were having a birthday, and in your, let's say, 7-year-old self, the world was simple. You didn't think about bills or wars or any of the emotional interpersonal dynamics of everyone around you. You were focused on you. It was all about you. And you were having an exciting, wonderful day. You were having a birthday. And none of the sort of negative or sort of not in that vein notes of the day mattered to you. They were there, but they weren't significant. They weren't important. They didn't become part of the memory of this wonderful day of a birthday. But then you do what they do in the play, which is you bring your adult self back with all the knowledge that you have, with maybe another 50 years of experience tacked on top of it, and realizing that the people that you're seeing weren't the people you thought they were. They were putting on for that moment a face for you. They were putting on a happy face for the child you to make your day sort of in a perfect little bubble. And they created a very happy fantasy for you. But then you bring back, and it's worse if you bring back total objectivity. If you bring back like the eye of God type of objectivity, right?
Yes.
Where you can see everything.
Everything.
And you that reminds me of the time we were talking about the life review.
Yes. Yes. that is one of the common threads whenever anyone has a near-death experience, is they do a full life review, and you get to see not only from your experience, but through the eyes of everyone that you are interacting with,
Hmm.
where they happen to be in that moment, and why they were reacting to you or the situation the way they were, why they were angry, why they said those mean things, why, and when you get that kind of perspective, it blows your mind. It really blows your mind, because the one incident I do remember is the fact that the woman that I know that had gone through this, she was being teased unmercifully because, she was a little impaired. She wasn't, I guess they used to call it slow, or however they wanted to call it. They would throw mean names at her, and she was being teased on the bus. And she just felt like she just wanted to kill this person, but she felt helpless. Well, she went through a life review with that particular point, and she saw where this young man was coming from. And it was a terrible situation he was coming out of. And she realized why he did what he did. And when she came back from the near-death experience, now this is an incident that this gentleman has no recollection of whatsoever, okay? But she basically sought him out to say, "I'm really sorry." That's how much of an impact that life review has. They say it's a 7 times intensification of living down here. Can you imagine that? 7 times intensification of living and experience down here.
Right, or even 6.5.
Right, that half.
That half. But no, the point. I mean, the wonderful point of these experience, this life review experience is, it is sort of like what we're talking about in our theme is why can't things stay the same? Well, all right, so we go all the way to the end of our life and we die, or there's a tragic incident,
right,
and you end up in life review, and you are brought back through, let's say, maybe not every femtosecond of your life, but through some of the significant events of your life, let's say crux points in your life where you either thought things were bad or you thought things were really good, and you get to see them with the eyes of omniscience, or the eyes of this kind of
true objectivity.
Objectivity, exactly. And you get to realize that those moments, every one of them individually, had so much more going on. If you were to again go back to this premise of why can't things stay the same, because your perspective, all of our perspective, is so limited. No matter how worldly and how objective you try to be, we are limited, incredibly limited. So our idea of what's going on, and we said this in the beginning, you think you know what's going on, and that's the time you should say to yourself, I really don't know what's going on.
Well, yeah, that's when the red flag has got to come up and say, right. I really don't know what's going on. And I know that doesn't seem right to people, but one of the things in our town that struck me, stood out, was a very simple thing where she, as this woman, as a small child, had replaying her birthday. The one thing she really regretted was the fact that, I believe it was her mother or her father, I can't remember which, would talk with her, but talk with her, not interact with her. All she wanted her mother to do was to raise her eyes up and look at her. Just look at me. That phrase. Just look at me. In other words, be here with me. It looks as if you're here with me. You're doing the birthday, you're doing the cake, you're doing whatever. It looks like you're here, but you're not meeting my eyes. We're not making a connection.
Right.
That was what was important. And even going back to the life review, when you see with those omniscient eyes, it's realizing that you really didn't communicate with the soul that you're having an issue with.
Right.
What you are interacting with is this wall of emotion or anger or self-hatred.
Yeah, and all from your perspective.
Well, or from their perspective. That's
Or from their perspective.
their perspective, because they're putting that wall up and interacting with you, and they're not making contact with you either. Or you're not making contact with them.
Right.
So the overall importance of understanding that your presence in the moment of now is so very important. It is so precious. It is more precious than anything you could possibly imagine.
Mm.
Because every moment where you're able to share with another person's presence, his heart or her heart, marks it in through that doorway of eternity. It's there forever. And that means that you have achieved absolute quality of the experience. Absolute quality of the experience. That's what we're down here to really walk into, learn how to walk into this. Because most people run away from something that is a fullness of experience.
Well, exactly. And even were you to say that I want to reach the pinnacle of experience of absolute quality, and then just stay there, even that, if that's not the end of your life, or if that's not if you can't draw that to a stop, what we're really talking about here when people say, why can't things just stay the same?
Mm-hmm.
Is what they really would like to do is stop in a particular moment in time. And really if you take it, what they really mean to do is they want to stop in a particular bunch of moments that kind of stay in a sort of a small cycle. But the fallacy there, the real, even if you could do it, the fallacy there is that you couldn't interact. You can't develop anything more. You've basically you might as well have taken yourself out of reality entirely, taking yourself out of life entirely, because you no longer. None of the things that you're stopping and saying, I never want to change again, none of those things actually matter anymore. What makes this moment matter is the next moment, if you know what I mean. Moving. The fact of change is so ingrained in our experience here that we find it. It's like a fish swimming in water. We don't always realize that we're doing it, but the fact of everyday change becomes noticeable when something's, oh man, I've got to fix the car again. The tires are worn out again. It's like, oh, why can't the bop 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 thing stay fixed for like 10 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
But every subsequent moment of your life is an opportunity for that experience, for that true connection. And if you stay in the moment where the car stays fixed, but you have no more new opportunities to become that full connection.
You don't take a step upward. You don't evolve. You're just there.
Static.
Mm-hmm. And the one thing human beings do not like to be is static.
Right.
That's the truth of it. If things were just, this is it, that's all you get, all your needs are met, we would be so bored.
Right. Well, that's exactly it. And in fact, if things remain the same, then the life itself becomes pointless, and meaningless. Even if you postulate that everyone else in the universe has their own individual remaining the same, and everybody's good, and we're all wonderful, and the universe is perfect, and life goes on as puppies and kittens for the rest of time, it becomes instantly pointless.
Mm-hmm. You have at that point given up your free will to
some
choose.
extent, yes.
No, you've given up your free will. You can't change anything.
Right. But rather than giving up your free will, what has become your free will has become a useless capability, or a capability which no longer serves any function whatsoever.
Well, that means that free will can't function in a world like that.
Right. It's not that you're being forced to do anything. It's just that there is no action of yours which can then have any consequences. I mean, for argument's sake, suppose the cat were to, you have a cat that comes in and wants to interrupt your radio program at a very significant point. And you would say, I never want that to happen again. But then there's no point of having the opportunity, the opportunity for an interruption is also the opportunity for, an action that mitigates that interruption, or that, that drives you onto an even more salient and perceptive point, which I'm sure I'm going to come up with very soon. But but yet you still have this cat who just wants to be pet, don't you?
Yes. And
cats live in a life which is pretty much perfect all the time, don't they?
Well, if they're pets, and they're well-loved pets, pretty much.
If there are pets and treats, and I get to sleep on every blessed thing in the house, mm-hmm. Life is pretty perfect, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Well, go ahead.
No, it's just that if you choose a static life like that, if you could choose a static life like that, which is really hard to do. Honestly, the way things are down here, that's pretty much impossible.
It is. It's a fantasy, but I think it's a fantasy which attracts people.
Yes, because it just seems like, well, if we could just freeze time for a while. But then you need an unfreeze button. Because
oh my gosh, an unfreeze button.
It's
Wait a minute, we can make a killing. Remember that easy button? You can make an unfreeze button. This is like a giant game of freeze tag.
Yeah, freeze tag. Exactly. Like a giant game of freeze tag.
Okay. Well, in fact, though, I think the other driver, besides this sort of idea that people don't want to live a static life, you know what people also don't want? What they really don't want is change. And unfortunately, when you have a non-static universe, you also have a universe that changes. And so I think what we'll do is have a little change. We'll go back to the studio, and we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about change. And cats.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Taking God on Patrol is a first-person account of the world of law enforcement from the perspective of a Christian police officer in the 4th largest city in America. From speeding car chases to the crossing of the thin blue line, author Mark S. Cariner seeks to find God's biblical truth in a behind-the-scenes look at law enforcement. And check out Mark's newest book, The Tactical Heart. Both are available at Amazon.com.
Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lynes is book 1 of the adventures of Devkalion, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time.
Hi, this is Minette Lauren, author of Race for the Sun. Do you believe in guardian angels? Check out book 1 of my Soul Watcher series. It can be found on Amazon.com or anywhere fine books are sold. Go to www.minettelauren.com, and you are listening to the ArtistFirst Radio Network.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lynes, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
You are listening to The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Let's get back to your hosts. It's Michael and Margaret Lynes.
Thank you very much, D-Man. And you know, that studio break was awesome. I really wanted it to last forever.
You're so bad.
I did. I wanted it to last forever. We have a wonderful time during the studio breaks, and wish someday we'll just broadcast those too. Right, Scott? Maybe not. Anyway, welcome back to the Soul of the Everyman, to the second half of the second top of the. I never know how to say that. Anyway, you're back. We're back, and that last half hour was. If you didn't hear it, was so awesome that we're going to go back and play it all over again because we want it never to change. We're going to go completely silent and mute, and you're going to hear the first half hour.
You are just.
Well, tonight's show is about the sentiment that if you could pick a moment and you just want it to never change, or rather that moment basically lasts forever. And it is something that is very seductive, and all of us feel at one point or another in our lives that somehow we've reached this perfect moment. But we said this, Margaret, in the first half hour, that in fact if you turn it around and say, well, if I was actually taken back to a perfect moment in my life and I had to live it, I'd realize that it wasn't all that perfect. And the more perspective, the more kind of omniscient, knowing what's going on, even in your own little sphere of things, the more you would realize that this moment was not perfect. It was just as good or just as bad as every other moment in my life. And in fact, you could turn it around and say, well, then really every moment in my life is a worthy and perfect moment. It really had to do with what I made out of it.
Right.
There are certainly horribly tragic moments in everyone's lives, and we've personally had a few that were perhaps more tragic than most. But even, I'll say this, from my point of view, even in the worst of those moments, there was some part of it that was worth living. You needed to be there, even if it was the most pain you've ever been in your life. You needed to be there to feel that pain, because that was in essence an expression of how much you loved the person that you were now feeling pain about not having in your life anymore. The witness of your life isn't really related to your limited, personal, ephemeral opinion about it.
Right. Life doesn't need your opinion about it to exist.
No, and it's not the point of it. The point of it is that you, as you said in the last half hour, that you're there as the person living it completely and fully, and to the extent that you can live each moment with that sentiment, regardless of the emotional baggage that's surrounding the moment. Whether, the point of, do I like this moment or don't I like this moment? That's irrelevant. The liking and unliking of moments in your life is a sort of a specious pursuit. It's something that we all do and that we should train ourselves not to do. The living of each moment in your life is the important bit. Not the liking of each moment of your life, or the unliking or disliking of each moment of your life, nor the sort of glamorization of each moment of your life, or sometimes the rewriting of the history of each moment of your life. How wonderful that was, how terrible that was. These
the comfort zones.
The I of you wants to judge everything. It wants to say this was good and this was bad and this was terrible and this was wonderful, and it wants to push them all into these little bins, and then be able to go back and open one of the bins up and be right back there again. Back when I had hair and my lips were fuller and my things weren't sagging and all this other stuff. you want to say that was the perfect moment in my life when I wasn't sagging and wasn't dizzy and all the. No, a life lived is full of moments after moments after moments of living, and not any one of them in true objective fashion is better than any other one. There are certainly times in your life when you're suffering, but those times in your life, even at the worst suffering, are also full of joy at some point, at some level. And similarly, even the times when you think nothing is going wrong, everything's sunny, puppies, kittens, cookies, there's some suffering in that. There's the eternal you that's writing your narrative all the time, is trying to make a story up that says this was wonderful, this was terrible, but it's not true. That's the you that's writing the novel of your life. You're the plankton in the plankton-mobile trying to write the novel of your life, but it's not the you that's living your life.
True. Because your awareness is so much more than the story that you're telling yourself. It's interesting if you observe the stories that you tell yourself and the stories you tell other people.
That's key.
Because the stories you tell other people are what you want people to perceive. But that's not always the case. In fact, it usually isn't.
That's the social media life.
And it takes you away from the true presence of the moment. Telling a story means that you have to become a third person, and you've put together all these facts and you spray it across whatever media you use, or however you want to talk to another person. But being in that moment means that you're actually listening to or participating in what's happening in this time and space. In other words, if you're speaking with a person, can you honestly say you understand what that person is trying to communicate? Because whatever they say isn't necessarily what they mean. And trying to get to the core of the meaning, that's a discipline that's amazing. If you can bypass that. that just the use of words, which is one of the reasons why we try to define the words as clearly as possible, because we accept the fact that words mean different things to different people. But if you're in the moment and you're able to communicate at a person-to-person level, heart-to-heart, where the person's heartbeat resides, then it's very clear communication. You know when someone's talking to you and they're trying to talk up something, and it's putting on a certain type of presentation or face. And you also know when they're being brutally honest, and they share with you what's really in their heart. Or you also know when that's, I can't take this, I have to run away, and off they go.
And you know your point about, you know, when somebody is telling you the story of what happened, and in essence they're oftentimes, if they're not telling it to you personally, they're putting it up on some media platform, they're telling you the story of what they wanted to have happened. It's very much a repackaging of the events as they would have wished they had happened to create a particular impression or persona. And that's a way, going back to the, that's a way of trying to say this moment never changes. People put up pictures on their profile pages and they don't change them for like 10 years. And that's, and then your swipe right is like, man, you are handsome. And the actual reality is, your belly sticking out and your hair being gone. And so the persona of the picture of you all properly coiffed or sucking in your gut and brushing back your bald spot and all that other good stuff is used as a way of saying this will never change. This is the me I always want to show to people.
Right.
This is my sort of a paper mache me, that I carefully construct as my way of hiding, the actual me that has to change. So that's a way of saying I want this to never change. It's basically what drives the $17 bazillion cosmetics industry. And so that desire, of never wanting to change plays very strongly in this sort of social media phony me,
And it's very interesting because a lot of people have translated that into this is the absolutely most important thing that you've got to do. No.
Yeah, your face or your persona becomes sort of almost like a cage, because the more the longer you put out this perfection, which is not you, and the more people accept that as actually you, it becomes a wall of iron. It becomes a cage of iron that you can't get out of, because what you really are saying is, people really saw the real me, they would never like me. They would.
Yeah, but I mean, it's got to be a certain type of mindset, because it seems to how do I say this? Did you read those articles about the tourists that were trying to take selfies, and they were at the end of some runway? I think it was in Thailand or something, or Singapore, whatever. But the planes have got to come in really, really low. And the big thing was to get a picture of the plane like right above your head, because it comes down and it's only a matter of feet. And there was a lady that died from it because she got blasted by the jet engine and knocked off the thing and died from it. And then there was some other thing about like people falling into the gorge of
Grand Canyon.
Grand Canyon, yeah. There was 3 deaths or something, and one of them was a tourist who was trying to do a selfie, and he fell. A couple of them, actually. But I mean, this is like, what is abrogating common sense at this point? You're in a very dangerous spot.
Well, exactly. but I would say that the opportunity to pad your artificial persona with this yet another look what I'm doing kind of moment, it short circuits actual living and actually takes you so far out of reality that you think you can't fall off that cliff. I'm taking a selfie.
Well, isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
Because in the head, you're like, well, does that mean that you've basically said this is the most important thing, and
Yeah.
you've disregarded the fact that you could actually die from this. You could slip, you could fall, you could get roasted, you could get, no, that doesn't matter.
Well, it has become more important to portray your yourself or to gild yet another bar in your cage of the persona that you show people. The I never change, I'm always this persona.
It just
that
seems
the reality of living or dying almost doesn't matter
Yeah,
anymore.
but that's my point. It's like living and dying doesn't register anymore.
Right.
Survival was always the basic response when you were in danger, and now we're at a point where that survival instinct has been nullified.
Darwin Award.
Oh yeah, the Darwin Award.
Posthumous Darwin Award. Well, I think we're straying a little bit far afield. To go back to what's happening there. One of the drivers of this idea that if only I could stop, so this moment would never change. This is my stop time, everything's perfect moment. One of the drivers, and we said this in the very beginning, is that there's the fear of the next moment. The problem with the next moment, two problems with the next moment. The first problem with the next moment is you don't know what's coming. All of us spend our whole lives predicting the future. We think, if I do this and do this and do this, everything's going to come out okay. And largely we're not wrong, because a lot of our future predictions are good enough that they accurately depict what does happen. But we're all plagued with the fact that our future predictions oftentimes don't agree with reality, and sometimes to the extent that what we thought was going to happen is so far wrong that we are completely taken out of ourselves. We are completely overwhelmed by what happened versus what we thought was going to happen. So the problem with the next moment is you don't know what's going to happen. So it's scary. And the other problem with the next moment is that you can't control it. You don't know what's going to happen. And then you say, well, I'm going to try and do something to control what's going to happen. And the reality comes in that when you try, you don't know, so I'm going to try and get ahead of it and plan and have a list and know what's going to happen and really, really control this moment. And despite all of that, reality goes, I don't care. Guess what? All the stuff you thought was, going to happen didn't happen. All the stuff you thought would control in case anything went wrong also was ineffective. Right. It's basically the basis of all good plays is that when something unexpected happens that you can't control, and then and then go. We love to watch people get into trouble and have to deal with it, because the unfortunate reality is that we get into trouble and have to deal with it. And so the driver behind putting up this cage of who I am, just, regardless of reality, and the driver behind not wanting to change is that there's an incredibly scary reality out there that's just lurking that could do anything. The reality that can do anything is very frightening.
True. It's an open door. And if you expect things to always go wrong, then your reality, the baseline of it is you're always got an underlying fear.
Yeah.
And if you basically look at it and go, things go right as much as they go wrong, and
Which
take
is
it. Yeah.
a better, more balanced approach.
Yeah,
Literally.
you're. It's not underlying fear anymore. It's just to hold there, and it's awareness, and to understand that you will be able to handle whatever comes your way.
And I think the most, if we're talking about the kind of three different ways you can look at it, the most solid way to look at it is to not try to be an actor in your future in the sense of trying to control your future. You have to be you have to greet the future, the unknown, with nothing more than living the moment. What causes most of the anxiety, why people hate change, is that they anticipate one of those two outcomes: wonderful, horrible. So it's all value judgment. It's like a horrible thing could happen, so they live in fear, or something good or something bad can happen. Well, you never know. It's uncertainty. Or you think Pollyanna, everything good is happening all the time, and you're like, well, okay, you're an idiot. But in fact, the fourth or the real idea is to not put yourself in the position of having to judge the future all the time, whether it's tomorrow, or 100 years from now, or the next second. You're not here to try to control the future. You're not here to live in the past. You're here to experience the moment, and then the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one, and eventually it will stop. Your mobile plankton guy up there is trying to judge everything and control everything and think about what happened in the past and worry about what's happening in the future, and never sits for a moment in the now. The now trumps everything. The now is now, always now, always now. If you're thinking and living in the now, you don't have time to worry about the past or worry about the future or live in the past. You've got to keep up with the now.
Yeah, actually, living is amazing because it is all encompassing, and you cannot stop it. Which is usually what the overall dislike of a person. They want to say, well, I want to be able to anticipate what happens. I want to be able to, and you sit there and you go, that is a control issue.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with being able to look at a situation and say, well, there are these variables that are there. But also understanding that these outcomes are not the only outcomes. These are the outcomes that you can see. But there are outcomes that you cannot see. To make room for it. And then when you're in that moment and you're living in that moment, then you'll know exactly what you have to do. You don't think about yourself in that moment. You think of the moment, which is it's a hard thing to grasp for a lot of people because they want to say, well, how do I feel in that moment? It's like, no, it has nothing to do with it, believe it or not.
Believe it or not.
Believe it or not, it has nothing to do with how you feel in that moment. It has everything to do with being in the moment. And it's encompassing your emotions, your thoughts, your feelings, your body, and the time that you're in, as well as people you are with in that particular moment. And you can live in the moment without any anticipation of it. The moment is always going to be there, whether or not you've considered it. But if you narrow your viewpoint and will only take in the things that you considered, you may miss a solution to your problem.
Well, I think there's two great points. I don't want to go past them too far there. What you said about the all-encompassingness of the moment, the fact that the moment lived trumps all of your opinions of it and trumps all of your past experiences. The moment lived is the moment lived, and it's a complete encompassing whole. But
Right.
the other thing you said, and I think this is a very important point, is when you stop trying to judge the moment before it happens and stop trying to judge it in retrospect after it's happened. If you live the moment in the moment, you'll know what to do when you're in it. And what is that if not an expression of wonderful faith in yourself? Don't people say, "Oh, faith, it's God, faith to God, I don't believe God." Blah. No, at least say this: trust your being to know what's going to be needed in the moment, rather than say, "I'm going to have all these things, and I have all this stuff, and I don't understand, and then this happened last week," and you've missed the moment. You're so busy thinking about where the moment's coming from and when it's going to be and how, whoop, gone.
I think we have to clarify the statement of you'll know what to do in the moment, because people equate knowing with thinking mind. And the knowledge that we're talking about in knowing is what comes right out of the heart.
The heart.
You will know which direction you must take your step in.
Well, that's what I mean by faith. Have faith in your being self.
I understand, but I'm qualifying the word.
Yes. No, I understand what you mean by qualifying. Knowing, people say, "Oh, no, good, maybe I can look it up." No, you can't look it up, nor can you learn how to live it. You have to learn to trust your heart, and your heart doesn't need to know. It doesn't even need to feel. It just needs to be. And in being completely, you will act as it is needed to act in that moment. You will know at the heart level.
The perception of the heart goes beyond emotion or feeling. Okay,
Yes.
I've got to qualify the feeling thing, because what you are perceiving, the only word we have in English is feeling, so people could get that mixed up. But the perceptions of the heart are deeper and true, because that doesn't lie to you. If you ask your head, it's going to lie to you. It will tell you anything you want to know as long as you listen to your head or your ego.
Right.
As long as you're listening to me, I'll tell you anything you want.
Right.
But your heart will tell you whether you like it or not. And it takes courage to enter into that space of the heart, because you will get your answer.
That and the courage, which is a wonderful word, because kur, of course, has the root in the word for heart. Courage, the living through the heart, is a place where you don't need knowledge in the sense of, I've trained and I'm ready and I have all my lists and I got my pocket knife and everything. No, you don't need that knowledge. You just need, perhaps the best way to say it without saying faith is trust. Trust yourself, your heart self, and the old saying, the words will come. Don't prepare any defense. That wonderful phrase from the New Testament. People will accuse you and come at you, and don't prepare any defense. When it's time to speak the words, they will come. They'll be there. You won't have had to have worried about them, and you have to live in that moment and trust yourself. Now, it isn't necessarily going to be put on trial, but the trials of life are enough. We're all on trial.
Right. So, well, with the heart state, we will leave this show.
What? Our heart is stopping. You're right. That unfortunately we've talked ourselves out of this hour of the soul of Everyman. So take heart.
Right.
This moment will never end. And I'm Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret. And thank you for listening.